Promoted as the highest public garden in the UK, Sky Garden occupies the top 3 floors of the Walkie Talkie building at 20 Fenchurch Street and is free to visit. However, booking is essential and there is a high level of security in operation. Because of this, large bags cannot be taken inside, and the use of tripods and monopods are not permitted, not even mini tripods. The challenges imposed by these restrictions requires the photographer to resort to traditional techniques, especially at night. I have made several trips and find the period around sunset the most rewarding. However, because the photographer must resort to hand-holding the camera in low light, it requires remembering those half-forgotten techniques learned years ago. In addition to the demands of hand-holding, noise may raise its ugly head. Successful nighttime photography is a fine balancing act where different techniques and sometimes conflicting procedures will win the day. But how much of each skill required is the critical issue that only experience will eventually tell. Supreme in Olympus OMD cameras is the excellence of the image stabilizer and the electronic finder. Both are new technologies that have been developed and improved over many years that can be regarded as essential. However, despite their sophisticated excellence, photographers who understand traditional techniques will benefit most from these improvements. The OMD image stabilizer is in the camera body, and hand-holding works well with standard or wide-angle lenses, both zoom or prime, up to 1/8 of a second, possibly a quarter. The OMD camera body communicates with a lens via a set of contacts, therefore the image stabilizer adjusts for the current lens. Furthermore, prime lenses often have a wider working aperture than many zoom lenses, especially variable aperture zooms, allowing the photographer to use shorter shutter speeds. For nighttime photography, the electronic finder makes exposure easier and more accurate. An optical finder is no more than an extension of the human eye, so what it sees you may not get. An electronic finder gives a digital preview with the settings a photographer makes, such as white balance and exposure compensation. Furthermore, the technology of electronic finders in OMD cameras has greatly improved to the extent that time lag is minimal, even non-existent on the latest EM1 model. However, a metering system, even center-weighted or spot, will not read black, resulting in a grey sky instead of black, with illuminations consequently overexposed. This is rectified by underexposing by at least 2 stops using exposure compensation. An electronic finder will give a good visual guide as to the correct amount, cutting out guesswork. This has an unexpected benefit that the camera can now use a faster shutter speed aiding hand-holding, thus avoiding high ISO settings that may, on some cameras, increase noise. I tend to spot meter of a highlight, better managed with an electronic finder. Center-weighted and certainly ESP will meter too much surrounding black, risking overexposure. Slight underexposure requires a certain amount of judicious lightroom work on dark areas that require lightening, but not too much, otherwise noise will increase. burnt out highlights are more difficult to correct, and as tripods are not permitted, HDR may not be practical. Unfortunately, the technical problems do not end here, as you will be shooting through glass. The normal technique is to position the camera up to the glass panel, cutting out reflections and the unintentional selfie. However, it slants at an angle, and at night it is easy to pick up bright lights from the bar behind. Again, the electronic finder is more accurate in showing this problem. But another way is to ask a friend to stand by your side, out of shot but quite close, blotting out reflected light. Also, consider a wide aperture so that any blemishes or marks on the glass are out of focus. Depth of field for city views should not be a problem, as everything is at infinity, but make sure that autofocus is not trying to focus on the glass panel. It is best to save in RAW and not JPEG, as some post-production work in Lightroom or similar program is unavoidable. Because of the variation of lighting within the building, not to mention outside, the photographer requires as much flexibility as possible for correcting unwanted color casts. Nevertheless, I tend to control white balance by setting it at 6000 Kelvin, not essential when saving to RAW. Following a successful visit to Sky Garden, take a short walk to the River Thames. Nearby is the Tower of London and Tower Bridge, the illuminations giving further exciting possibilities for night photography. As for the bridge raising at the right time, that is down to luck.